Save the Semantics, episode 244. It is January 28th, 2024. My name is Myro. This is the podcast where I ramble on for a bit about some shit. Recording this on a Sunday afternoon, noon rather, around noon. The weather right now is just right. It's perfect. So I want to be out and about as much as possible. I want to be out in this weather before it starts raining again, which it might start doing so later this week or earlier this week. So I want to take advantage of this right now, and be outside and all that. It's been a week. It's been a fine week. It's been an okay week. It's been all right. Nothing too crazy. I would say same old, but I feel like I don't know how much of that actually applies necessarily. You know what I mean? It's true, but it's also not true. Like there's things that are different every week. You know what I mean? Maybe I should give myself a bit of grace and say that there are some things that are different week to week. You know what I mean? So. No, it's not same old. Anyways, this week's been let's get into basketball first. The NBA has been a fucking roller coaster this past week in terms of just like record-breaking scoring moments. There's been 4 separate 60-plus point games that have occurred from individual players. So Embiid had a 70-point game. Karl Anthony Towns on that same day had a 64-point game. Devin Booker had a 62-point game. And then Luka Doncic had a 73-point game. Fucking nuts, dude. It's been wild this week, just seeing all of these like scoring records being broken. I know a lot of the discussion following this past week has been in regards to how offense oriented the league has become, and maybe less of a focus on defense or whatever. But I think that might take away some of how impressive these individual performances have been. I watched the Embiid one, which is crazy. He just couldn't miss. I haven't seen the other highlights for the other players, but I imagine just like based on like the field goal percentages and everything, it just must have been kind of crazy. I don't know. I think the players are just that damn good. You know what I mean? And sure, you could argue that the defense for these, the opposing defenses have been subpar or whatever. But still, man, like you don't just walk out and score like even 50 plus points. You know what I mean? You got to be real good, and all of these players are pretty damn good. So I don't know, man. I think it's just I think we live in an era where the talent level is so incredibly high that even someone who isn't even necessarily considered even in like the top 10 is able to put up some crazy numbers like this. You know what I mean? So I'm not saying, of course, like Embiid is like one of the best players, and of course Doncic is also one of the best players in the league, but I'm just saying, like, it is possible that some player can just go out and put up 50, man. It can just happen. Like Sadiq Bey, like 2 years ago, had a 50-point game, like, and like, now he's just kind of chilling on the Hawks. So I don't know. Anything can just really happen. So crazy league, man. Crazy league. I don't really want to get into the Warriors right now, just because they've continued to continue to have some failures, I would say, or just continue to have miss out on some close games. There's 2 back-to-back games of losing by 1 point. That hurts. But I've also become kind of numb to it, honestly. I talked about this last time on the last episode in regards to just kind of how the season has sort of projected and everything, and I just want to enjoy what I can, regardless of the wins and losses. I've almost, of course, I would love for them to be able to get into playoff position again, but I also, I think I just want to enjoy the moments and enjoy what is at hand and not be too consumed for the want for playoff success, considering I have been spoiled by it as a fan of the team. So I'm just gonna enjoy it for what it is. You know what I mean? I know obviously there's a want for a final push of some sorts, a last dance of some kind. Players like Siakam is off the market. I know like Markkanen has been rumored to be available for free agency. I don't understand why the Jazz would do something like that, considering they've had some success recently and they are in they're in a better playoff position. Like they're in play-in contention, right? With a better record than the Warriors. I just don't understand why the Jazz would do something like that unless they really want to try to focus on a quote-unquote rebuild. But I don't understand why they would do something like that, considering that they are already in a position that allows for their younger players to develop. You know what I mean? Playoff experience, honestly, is incredibly important. And based on what has been discussed in regards to this year's upcoming draft, it seems like the draft prospects are a bit weaker, right? Last year we had obviously Wembanyama, Scoot Henderson. Scoot's been kind of like okay. Brandon Miller. Who else? The Thompson twins. Like there was a lot of really good draft prospects in last year's draft, but this year it doesn't seem to be the case. So I feel like you should probably just roll with what you have and continue to develop from that point on, instead of shopping your, essentially your star player, right? In marketing at this point. I just don't think it makes a whole lot of sense to do something like that. But I don't know, maybe they have some other things in mind. Maybe the Jazz have something else in mind that they just want to try to build towards. But yeah. DeJounte Murray has been rumored heavily rumored in trade talks. I don't know if he would be a player that would raise the Warriors' ceiling. I feel like it would be. I just don't really know what the trade pieces would be. Like, if we moved some players, I think it would probably feel more like a lateral move than anything. I don't know. That's just kind of how I feel about it. Like maybe he would provide. He would provide some defensive prowess and necessary defensive presence on like the wings, but I just don't know if that's going to be enough to raise our ceiling as a team that we currently are. So I don't know. I don't feel confident about that move. Other possible moves, it's just not really. It's hard to see what's out there. You know what I mean? So we might just have to roll with what we have, try the best that we can to get into a play-in position. That's still in the works. It's still possible. We could upset, and then if we get into like an 8th seed position, and if we somehow are able to get to that, obviously this is a bit more of a kind of a long shot, but anything is possible, man. Anything is possible at that point, right? So that's kind of how I feel at this point. Is play-in would be probably kind of a good thing to shoot for with this team. But again, I don't want to set too many expectations. I just don't. I just want to enjoy. I just want to enjoy the ride, which feels like it's sort of coming to a close. Um, let's talk. Uh, so I finished one of the routes for Triangle Strategy last night, um, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. I really enjoyed the experience with it. Um, I held off, like I mentioned, I held off on playing that game for 2 years pretty much because I got stuck. Um, I got stuck on a level that I just was continuously frustrated by. And we made it through. We made it through to one of the endings. I don't know if I will go back and experience the other. Seems like there's 3 other endings. I don't know if I'm gonna really do that. Maybe I'll look it up if I'm curious. But I think for the time being, I'm satisfied with my experience with this game. I think there are some really good moments in it. There's some good story moments. I think there are. I wasn't as captured or as invested in the characters necessarily, but I can appreciate that the writing overall was really well done, and you could understand the character motivations. You understand why they decided to make these decisions throughout the story, and I think that it sort of supports the narrative in that way, and it creates a lot of conflict within the story, um, and there is also a strong there's a strong player inclusion in this game, and what I kind of mean by that is that there are a lot of points throughout the story and throughout the gameplay itself where you as the player are sort of forced to make certain decisions, and how you've progressed the game will lend itself to how things may turn out, how certain events might how certain events might develop. And I think that's very I thought that aspect was very well done. It felt like you had a very direct impact in the story, and that your decisions make a very clear kind of I don't know. There's a very clear case of how this story develops, and you being sort of the initiator of that. I think it's cool. I think it's very cool. Um, I also like within the gameplay itself, within the kind of the strategy RPG aspect of it. I like, and this is something that I kind of realized pretty late, um, is that you can essentially grind your characters, your units, simply by just repeating the same level over and over again. So the level that I was stuck on for 2 years, uh, I found out that you level up, like regardless if you fail that certain level or that mission, you retain the experience that you've gained by kind of doing it over and over again, which I appreciate. Um, in games like Fire Emblem, I mean, this makes it more easier, right? I'm sure in like maybe in the harder difficulties, you might not be able to do so. Um, where you're sort of just like when you start over a level, you have to start over with um, kind of with what you started with, right? But in the case of this game, you're able to kind of um, keep the items, keep the experience, all that. I think it's very nice. It's very nice for someone like me who struggles with strategy RPGs like this one. Even Fire Emblem, which I love, the Fire Emblem games, I still struggle with them. I suck at those games. I'm really not that good. Um, I try to be good, but I'm just not very good. So I think that there's, I think that provides, you could argue maybe like a quality of life support sort of thing, giving a bit more balance to players like myself, a bit more of like a easier mode or easier approach to the game. And I found that to be very helpful and nice and useful. um, Another thing, and I touched upon this before, I think the music in this game is very well done. Um, there's a lot of moments. There's one moment in particular where I felt the music really aided the moment, kind of the emotional, uh, helped provide a bit more of like an emotional tone to like a scene. Um, and There's like one moment that I really, really enjoyed. Um, it's kind of towards like the end, maybe it's like the 3/4 mark of the game, where essentially you break off, and this is where the timeline or whatever kind of shifts, and you have to make a decision, um, in terms of where, in terms of like the different endings that you're gonna get. Um, and there's this one moment that's very well done. It's essentially this like disagreement between two of the characters, and it's very, you understand, like, you, one is coming from your perspective as a player as you make a decision, and then the other character is sort of the devil's advocate. They argue against you, and I thought that scene was incredibly well done. I thought the voice acting was good as well. Voice acting on the Japanese side of things. I didn't listen to the English voice acting, but the Japanese voice acting was very well done across the board. But that, in that particular scene, it was excellent, and I thought it conveyed the emotions very well. And you're like, I understand where both of these characters are coming from, and I felt like that was very well conveyed, and I appreciated that. Um, I think sometimes uh, there are cases where voice acting can be like a hindrance in a lot of cases, but I think in this game in particular, it aided a lot. Um, I think, and also with the pixel art aspect of it, sometimes it is a little difficult maybe to make out emotion or whatnot, because you're not able to get like a very clear view of like a character's like facial expressions or whatever, you know what I mean? And so I think the voice acting does add an extra layer to it. Because like in general, like the dialogue, the way it's written is not like, it's not like super crazy. It's well written, but it's not like, I don't know how to describe it. Like, it's not necessary. It's not the same as something like Final Fantasy 6, for example, where within the dialogue you can clearly get an indication of who the character is. Like, I think it's very much like you could tell what kind of personality each character has based on their dialogue, right? I think with this game, there are certain characters where you're like, okay, you kind of have an idea, but for the most part, they all talk very similarly. You know what I mean? So, I don't know. It's not really like it's hardly a criticism. It's much more to fit within the frame of the game and just the tone of the game, which is much more serious in nature. So I understand that. I think that in this case, I think that having uh, having voice acting helps present that a bit more strongly, in my opinion. Um, what else was I gonna say? Um, Overall, really good experience. Really fun. I mean, I struggled at certain points with the combat and everything, but I'm happy that I was able to see it through. And now, what will be my next game? I was leaning towards Okami a little earlier on, like last month or something like that. Right now, I'm like sort of craving Disco Elysium. I'm kind of craving that more of that RPG style. From that's what I, based on my very very limited knowledge of the game itself. I feel like I'm leaning towards Disco Elysium and that style of game more so than like action RPG, Zelda like combat with Okami. Um, and I'm a bit more interested in, I guess, like a more narrative heavy game as well. I mean, Okami, I think has a narrative, but I know that Disco Elysium is known for a very strong story and everything, and I think I'm just leaning towards that a little bit more. So whether I start that today or sometime this week, I feel I'm leaning towards that right now, and I'm excited to get into it. I've heard a lot of good things about the game. I know really nothing at all. I've seen screenshots of the game, and of course, I've heard really glowing, uh, glowing things about the game. But I just I don't know what to expect. So that's kind of exciting. Um, I'm really looking forward to that. So let's talk let's talk a little bit more about kind of what's coming up in terms of the gaming landscape, if you want to call it that. Um, I feel it is February, or it's almost February. Um, so there's likely going to be a direct sometime, close to in a couple of weeks potentially, right? Um, and that's kind of exciting, mainly because we don't know for sure whether there's going to be a direct reveal. I mean, sorry, a new Switch reveal or something along those lines. Like a lot of the rumors are pointing to it being the case, but we really don't know because, like, as I've discussed previously, back in like September when they had their last direct, um, the lineup for this year for the Switch is very like bare bones. Like there's not a whole lot going on. Um, like there's the only thing like there's that new Peach game that's coming out pretty soon. Um, the Paper Mario remake is slated to come out sometime this year. There are games that I'm personally interested in, like the Suikoden remakes, and then the is it like the Thousand Heroes game, which is like the developers of Suikoden that created that game. Games like that are coming out that I'm interested in. But for the most part, like I don't, it's not something that really catches my eye. I still have so many other games that I want to play through, right? So I am not I am not like at all dry on games that I would like to play. It's more so that I'm just excited to see what's gonna come up, and thinking about the future and new games that are gonna appear, like that sort of thing. That I am excited about. That I am very much looking forward to. Um, because like the certain games like uh, Metroid Prime 4, which has been the initial release, quote unquote release trailer or whatever, like excuse me, the initial teaser trailer rather that came out was like back in 2017, which is crazy. It's been an incredibly long time since that game has, uh, been announced, right? So I feel like there's gonna be, I feel like there's gonna be something about it that's gonna come up soon. Um, that's just kind of how I feel about it. Um, other things, I really hope that there is a. I think it would be exciting to hear about like a, Super Mario Odyssey or some Mario 3D game that's gonna come out for the Switch. I feel like a brand new 3D Mario would be huge. Um, and then maybe some other stuff as well, right? There's always the potential for maybe some Zelda kind of game. Obviously, Tears of the Kingdom just came out, but it would be cool to see remakes, right, for Wind Waker and Twilight Princess potentially hitting the new Switch. That would be pretty cool. That would more incentivize people like me to buy the system a little earlier, right? Um, if they were cross-platform, that would be even better. Now that would be really nice. You know what I mean? Um, if I hope this the I hope the new Switch. I think the biggest thing would be for the new Switch to be backwards compatible. That's like almost it's like a no question thing, right? I think that um, it would be a real blow if the new system didn't allow you to play, older Switch titles on it. I think that would be incredibly disappointing. So, fingers crossed for that. But yeah, everybody. There's been plenty of discussion leading up to this point, in regards to, a new system being showcased and released. Um, it's just because again, like I said, there just hasn't been enough of a showing for other games coming out this year. Like I struggle to think of other games um, that are going to be released that are sort of like big titles for Nintendo, right? So that's kind of my um, I feel there's going to be something coming. So that's exciting. And even if it doesn't release, there's still going to be like I'm good, you know what I mean? Like I'm good. I'm like good for like the rest of this year, honestly, for games that I want to play. So I I'm all good and clear in that sense, but I still think it would be exciting to see new hardware at this point. Other things that I wanted to kind of catch up on, talk basketball, we talk games. I started watching The Bear recently. I watched the first 2 episodes last night. I like it a lot. I like the style. I like how frantic it is. I love how chaotic the fucking scenes are, how the camera just moves around and all that, and just the constant just like bickering and just cursing. Yeah, this is gonna be good. I'm already a fan of it. Um, I also am a fan of the food that's being shown. That the craves. I when I watch the show, I crave like a sandwich, like a good old, I don't know, Chicago sandwich, I suppose. This makes me want to go to Chicago. Like they haven't really shown much of the city or anything, but just the vibe, you know what I mean? And obviously it's much more. There's more to it than just 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 that. But I just like, I like it. I like the setting. I like just the interactions between the characters, and then I'm a sucker for the food that's being shown. Um, so I'm looking forward to watching the rest of this, and season 2 as well. Hearing about season 2 getting a lot of Emmy nods, which is really exciting and really cool. So yeah, I think this show is like right up my alley. And then another great thing, every episode is only like 30 minutes, which is perfect. I love that shit. It's enough to just like hold your attention for like half an hour, and it's very concise and to the point. There's no filler, man. There's no filler. Every scene is like necessary, and I like that. And that's some good shit right there. That's some good television. Anyways, these are some of the things that I wanted to catch up on. A bit of a shorter episode this week. Next week, what is next week? Next week we're going into February. It's also going to be my birthday pretty soon. Well, that's more like next week, but it's coming up, man. And do I have any thoughts on that? Not really. I'm just I'm excited to see kind of developments on in the gaming world. Obviously, I also want to touch upon this as well. Like, there's been like a fuck ton of layoffs from like Microsoft and stuff, which is really, really sad and disappointing. It sucks that despite how incredible of an year it's been last year for the gaming gaming world, just the quality of the games, the fact that so many people have lost their jobs is incredibly disappointing, and it sucks. And it just like it just further I don't know, it further kind of tells, it further illustrates this, this further illustrates what the bottom line for these companies are. It's really unfortunate. These practices are awful and terrible. If AAA studios want to have a profitable game, maybe don't blow your budget on nonsense like poor marketing and ridiculously high performance costs, like I don't know, just things that are almost like outlandish and unnecessary just to live up to some sort of industry standard. And pay your people, man. If you're like a CEO of like a company, take a pay cut or something, you know what I mean? Like, it's just so ridiculous that you, and it's like it's always the case. It's like thousands of people get laid off. CEO gets like a 20% bump in their salary, or like a bonus or some shit like that. It's always that, always, you know what I mean? And it sucks. It's frustrating. It makes me hesitant at times to buy games. And yeah, I hate that shit. It sucks. It's awful. I hope that those people that have lost their jobs are able to find better jobs. And it's here's the other thing. It's like these types of practices, it's going to push away game developers. You know what I mean? And I think that's a really bad precedent that these companies are setting. You could argue maybe, and maybe this is a silver lining of some sorts, that this allows for like developers to come together and create their own studios outside of like the AAA scene. But I don't know. It's still really unfortunate, and it's just like a whole, I don't know. These types of practices that these companies have are awful, and it just sucks. And I hope that some necessary change comes from it, either in the way that these industries, or the heads of these industries conduct their businesses, or if this there's some level of like further like unionization for salaried employees to get their benefits and to get paid and shit like that. I don't know. But overall, awful, and I hope that the situation improves to some extent. Excuse me, goddamn. Um, that's gonna be it for today. uh, Sorry for ending it off on a bit of a somber note, but I just wanted to kind of say it. Thanks for listening as always. This has been Save the Semantics, signing off.